Oh, look, it's True Hoops, little Zoom from quarantine show. Bring it in. I'm back. David Thorpe, how the heck are you?
I mean, I miss Tom, but I'm
Yeah,
not unhappy that you're here, and all
yeah.
is good.
It's good to be here. Okay, we're gonna talk about some interesting things. The Lakers, LeBron, play-ins, all this kind of stuff. Who would win a Bucks versus Nets playoff series? A freakishly accurate Rockets prediction, a game-winning tip-in. And Judy, can you show the New Yorker cover? It's just for me personally, this is just like worlds colliding. I just look at this. This is the NBA on the cover of the New Yorker, everybody. Look at that. Haven't read it, don't know what's in it, but just want to share. Okay. So David, we were preparing for the show, and you said, Henry, why don't you tell people, explain what you've been working on? Right? Did you say something like that?
Well, basically, everyone who follows Troop knows what you're working on. I just thought that this would be a great time for you to explain with your voice and your
Yeah.
mind what you've been writing about for a while now. Yeah, I really don't care if anyone else likes to hear it. I enjoy hearing these stories and get a chance to all the time. So please
Well, I'll
read
be
them.
honest, I've avoided talking about it on the show because like I'm not good at being concise, and I feel like it's a favor to watchers of the show to like keep things moving. But I tried to. Okay, I'm gonna give it a whirl. All right, at your request, here we go.
Yep.
All right, so I started out looking into Apollo Global. I'm calling it the NBA's most important source of cash. This is where the money for the current billionaires who run the 76ers and Hawks come from. And its founder recently resigned after being found to have given $158 million to Jeffrey Epstein. And part of that, it's now expanded to 11 parts, and we're not quite done yet. I spent the last 2 posts last week writing about arms dealer Adnan Khashoggi. And that's been getting this crazy feedback. It's kind of fun. But as sports fans, I think we should pay attention to this for tons of reasons. But one of them is his nephew is named Jamal. Jamal Khashoggi, you probably remember, was a journalist. He walked into a consulate in Istanbul a couple years ago. He was taken prisoner, assassinated, dismembered, and then just like evaporated in a crime that the CIA now says was ordered by Mohammed bin Salman, the crown prince of Saudi Arabia. So that crown prince is only 35 and could be running one of the richest countries on the planet for the rest of our lives. So this is getting closer to why I think this matters. Someone made a documentary about what happened. This award-winning documentary maker, Hollywood Reporter says that. Well, actually, I'm getting ahead of myself. So then he also did this other thing. MBS. This is like not disputed stuff. He entrapped, incarcerated, somehow contained most of his rivals. He was not actually the natural next leader of Saudi Arabia.
Right.
In the Riyadh Ritz-Carlton, and there's a bunch of reports about what happened in there, allegations of torture, blackmail, shakedowns, all this kind of stuff. And after that event, he became the next leader of Saudi Arabia. A British group called Grant Liberty did a big report on the Saudi regime, and they say that what happened to Jamal Khashoggi is not an aberration. I'll read a couple things. There's the story of the beheading of a young man because of a WhatsApp message he sent at the age of 16, or the young people facing death for crimes committed at ages as young as 9. Lina El Hatul writes, my sister is an award-winning women's rights activist, and she's been nominated for the Nobel Prize, and she is celebrated all around the world except at home, where she languishes in a maximum security prison. In prison, my sister has been tortured and degraded and sexually abused. So my thought is, like, how do you do this? How can you be seen as a legitimate leader of a major nation with this kind of approach? And the answer is with powerful friends in Hollywood. So this is where I get to this documentary called The Dissident. It premiered at the Sundance Festival, and I'm going to read from the Hollywood Reporter. It had all the trappings of a successful debut for a film seeking distribution: glowing reviews, the endorsement of personalities including Hillary Clinton and Alec Baldwin, and major industry figures populating the audience, including Netflix CEO Reed Hastings. But following the documentary's first Park City screening in January, director Brian Fogel, who in 2018 won an Oscar for Icarus, which Netflix distributed in the US, heard crickets from distributors. Without going into behind-the-scenes details that I'm aware of, there was a united front among the major global media companies, distributors, that they were not going to touch this film, Fogel says in December. So that's a little Hollywood thing. In Silicon Valley, in 2008, Bloomberg reports that Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman wrapped up a whirlwind tour of technology titans on Friday, part of a 3-week U.S. visit focused on economic opportunities to diversify the oil-rich nation. That's him with the founder of Google on the screen now. The Saudi delegation visited several Silicon Valley corporate campuses, including Apple Inc. and Facebook Inc., but 2 industry players stood out on the schedule: Alphabet Inc.'s Google and Peter Thiel, the billionaire venture capitalist who advised President Donald Trump. And then finally, this little tour of amalgamating powerful friends includes sports. It's an integral part of the king's vision for 2030. Saudi Arabia has spent some number of billions to do what they call sport washing. In this Guardian report, they kind of take off $650 million for Formula One, $500 million for WWE, $300 million for just a handful of boxing matches, $180 million for Real Madrid, $145 million for Spanish football, $60 million for tennis, $20 million for horse racing, and on and on. I'm a sports journalist, and I'm wondering, is the NBA part of this? And it's a tricky question to answer. Haven't gotten into it yet, but I will just say this. Shortly before he was arrested and then ultimately died in custody, Jeffrey Epstein had a New York Times reporter over to his house, and that guy noted that there's a giant portrait of Mohammed bin Salman in Jeffrey Epstein's Manhattan residence. So
that is so crazy to me.
It's crazy, right? I mean, just as a portrait, like what the hell?
I'm just saying, of all the portraits to have, if you told me it was painted by Salvador Dali from many years ago or some other really famous painter, at least there's some degree of understanding, but just some, quote unquote, random, oligarch, no, that's odd.
Yeah. It's interesting you say oligarch. I think there is actually, I think that's exactly right. I think that's exactly the playbook. I think that's exactly how it works. Is like, I think Putin kind of figured out how to like barge your way into power, right? How to bully a country into doing your favors, right? And I think that's exactly what we're seeing here. I think that's a perfect use of that word. Anyway, okay, so I did it though. I got through the part that I was worried was going to take half an hour. Yay! Let's have a party. Anybody got any questions about that, or should I move on?
Well, I would only just add this: when you described what happened to his uncle, I guess it was in Turkey, dismembered, whatever. Like, this is very common as to how people grab power, bloodshed, right? Retain power, grabbing power. It's a very, very common thing throughout history, right? And just to cut it to present day, January 6th, that was the attempt. Video came out. NBC sued to have coverage yesterday of one video with audio of the supporters of the insurrection fighting like mad with cops who were fighting for their lives to try to get through a small window. It came out yesterday. At least I saw it yesterday. This is how people, Saddam Hussein killed everybody to take power in Iraq many years ago. Everyone in the room. This is what we see.
Yeah. Okay, so let's talk about LeBron. He some genius found that at the time of the play-in tournament being proposed, he said that it was a great idea and he supported it. But now the Lakers are flirting with the play-in tournament for themselves. He says that whoever thought it up should be fired. LeBron, you can't do it that way.
No.
What's your take, David?
I mean, I think he's frustrated. We started writing this a while ago, a couple of years ago, that the initial intention was for LeBron he signed a 3-year deal. He was going to get AD as soon as he could, and they were going to try to win 3 championships. They fucked up the trade for AD, happened way too late. So he lost year 1, didn't even finish the season because he was hurt. They were out of contention. They didn't get AD. What's the point of coming back? He did come back for a while, but then he cut it off. Then they got AD. They won a title during a pandemic. Great, still no asterisk. He won a championship. And as we wrote about, I think it was a week ago, the chances of them winning again just are very low. It's still possible, but they just lost to the Kings. I want to say, right? Yeah. No, they lost to the Raptors. Was it the Raptors last night? Yeah.
Yeah, and the Kings beat that. Like both of those teams, the Mavericks and Lakers, that are like neck and neck now. The Kings beat both of them over the weekend.
Yeah, and in between, the Kings lost to the Jazz, who didn't have Conley. Well, they definitely didn't have Donovan Mitchell. I remember Conley played by 48, 49 points, some crazy number. And now they just lost to the Raptors, who lost to the Jazz. they lost to the Raptors, and the Raptors won a back-to-back after playing in Utah again without Conley, without Donovan Mitchell, the starting backcourt, and the Raptors still beat the Lakers. So I think LeBron's realizing that nothing is going to be easy from here on in, and now we might even have to play in just to be in the postseason. So I think it's catching up to him a little bit. It's going to be one championship in 3 years, probably anyway.
There's so much like a lot of aging is acceptance, right? There's like it's just like when you're LeBron's age in the game, right? Like you don't get to just slay every dragon, right? Some of the dragons are difficult, right? You have to accept like, we're outmatched against this dragon, right? And this is a mentality that's going to be hard for him. I don't think I've ever seen him like scapegoating somebody before, right? Like he's like, when he says that guy should be fired, I'm like, he's always just been like, we'll wax him anyway, right? That's been his position. But this is like, oh my gosh, he's looking for somebody to blame, which is
it is fair to wonder, and we won't be the only ones wondering this, if the people, not the person, the people who came up with the idea, by the way, they've been planned all over the place, not in the NBA, until last year anyway. If they would have done that, if there was even a chance, it might be LeBron James that has to play in. Right. Might they have waited for LeBron no longer to be part of it? You know what I mean? But I defend the idea. I don't like the way the playing game is being done. I have a different way that I think they should do it. But I don't care if LeBron has to play in a playing game. Well, they aren't that good, right? They shouldn't have to be in this game. He's back early enough. Although I don't know if you paid attention to this or not, Henry, because you were busy doing all these other things. He is hurt again. Yeah. He admitted. He probably saw his ankle. He admitted he might have come back too early. He said he had to test it.
He didn't finish the game. Yeah.
Well, you didn't really have to test it if it meant you're going to be out longer. There's other ways to test it without having to play third in this NBA game. Again, this is the story of the season is COVID/injury, and it's hitting almost everybody. And the Lakers got smacked with it, and we're going to have a tough time recovering.
Their schedule is tough. I will also point out, well done, ESPN. It wasn't originally going to be national televised, but this Friday is Blazers Lakers on ESPN. It's very hard to believe. And then that determines not just a whole game in those standings, but also the tiebreaker between those two teams.
Right. It's a big game.
It's very hard to believe the loser of that game won't be in the play-in tournament, right? It seems like extremely likely to me. There's also, when they made, the NBA is desperate for divisions to matter, which is like, nobody cares, right? Like, do you even know which teams are in the Southwest Division? Like, it just doesn't matter for anything. And there's long been an argument to do away with it. But the one, and I've been in the NBA offices basically saying like, these don't mean anything. And they're like, oh yes, they do. What they say is they affect some tiebreakers. And David, it's going to happen. Like, because what's going to happen is the Mavericks are going to be division winners. And if all three teams end up tied, being a division winner gives them a top spot, which is banana. I mean, cool. Those are the rules. But like, come on.
Well, so that matters. Here's a question though. I know not pop quizzes, so you don't have to answer it, but maybe someone can answer it.
Let me just think about it.
Is Luka now at the threshold for technicals and suspensions? He's really close.
Like a Devin question. Devin probably knows the answer.
He might be at that threshold right now. I'm just
14.
Wondering.
It's 14. I think did you get the full 16 in this shortened season, or did they?
Well, that's what I'm saying. It's really close. What happens if he gets his final technical in the final game of the regular season and they have a play-in game?
Yeah.
Because then he'd have to sit, and that's it for the Mavericks, right? Now they'll make the playoffs. Obviously, if they're a 7-8 seed, or the 7 seed, they'll what is it? So 7 plays 8 to win to decide who's the 7 seed. Yeah. And then after that,
the loser of that plays the winner of 9-10. And
I think they're okay. I think that was going to make it, but it's intriguing. Although I think who leads the league in Texas this year?
No,
it may be Luka, but on the East it's Dwight Howard.
Oh, buddy,
I don't know what he's upset about. He looks fantastic. He's playing great.
No, but he fouls the living hell out of everyone, and then I'm sure that the refs are tuned into him, right? Like, yeah.
I watched him yesterday. I didn't see it. I don't think he got one, but he looks amazing. Yeah, I'm beefing about.
Can we just talk about Luka for a second? Like, one of the things we subconsciously do as sports fans, which is maybe stupid, is kind of like read body language and expression and like, like who looks vibrant and energetic and who looks like an old retired accountant. Like tired Luca looks so like he has like not the greatest posture and he looks a little like he's looking for his glasses or something. He just looks like befuddled a lot. I'm like, I mean, he's an absolute wizard.
Yeah.
But like, if we're just reading these subtle signals, I'm like, buddy, you need a nap. like he just looks like.
No, he needs more than a nap. Yeah, he needs an extended vacation.
He does.
All these guys do. You read injury reports every day. And yesterday, Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum got hurt. I think they hurt each other.
Oh, no, I saw the whole play. It was weird. So Jaylen Brown almost didn't play because of his ankle.
Right.
And then, was out there playing his brains out. Jason Tatum was ridiculous. Of course he is. He's ridiculous. But with seconds to play and they're trying to get a steal, like there's just a crazy little inbound moment where they just collide into each other. Jaylen Brown falls on his ankle again. Jason Tatum hobbles off too. Like it didn't look like one of those like car crash kind of collisions, but definitely both players in pain. And they both went to the locker room with time on the clock in I don't know, that was 5-7 point game, something like that.
And we've not heard yet.
I have not. No.
I want to go backwards for a moment. I didn't realize you were done with your soliloquy. So are you suggesting that, are you going to suggest that in the future when NBA teams are being purchased, that the prism at which we look at potential owners when they're applying needs to be widened to continue to make sure we have a scope that allows for who are they doing business with, who have they done business with? Is that something you'd recommend if someone asked you?
I mean, I don't know that I have like a prescription, but I feel like the way it works right now is the owner's the richest person you can possibly get your hands on, and the best one is the one who just writes the biggest checks.
Yeah.
Right. And that's kind of how we've seen it. That setup is like waving a red flag to criminals, right? Like this is saying like, here we will not question you, right? And if you look at who can write the biggest checks, right? It's usually not somebody anymore now, right? Who's just like, we ran a bunch of grocery stores or we sold tractors, right? It's usually someone who's got difficult to track giant flows of offshore money and maybe a little sprinkling of Jeffrey Epstein, and it's hard to know what's happening, right? And I think if we as sports fans are like, I'm very thankful that this very, very wealthy person is on my side. Then I think we get in this thing where the highest bidder is usually going to be someone who's getting the value of it that we are making them beloved, right? They're going to purchase our affection, right? Stephen A. Cohen was routinely seen as somebody who was caught up in some pretty bad stuff in his business career, and that hung over him. And he bought the Mets. He may end up making a profit on it, but for now, like he's already just beloved, right? His Twitter feed's all just this pitcher, that manager, rah, baseball, right? Like, and nobody in sports media calls him on anything of that, right? Like that's just he gets to be Mets owner Stephen A. Cohen, right? This is why Adnan Khashoggi tried to buy the Utah Jazz, right? So he could stop being arms dealer Adnan Khashoggi and start being Jazz owner Adnan Khashoggi. We just
right, because even the reverse, meaning instead of being the savior and the team winning, easy to celebrate, if you buy the team and you lose, that's still the only story. They're not writing about the other crap that's going on. I read Manchester United, whose owners are the Glazer family. The fans erupted yesterday. I have no idea why. They've done great in the last 10 years, but apparently not so well this year. Meanwhile, they also own the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who are reigning Super Bowl champions. And so, to your point, it's either, they suck as owners of this football team in Europe, amazing owners of this football team in Tampa, which 3 years ago was not the case. They were not beloved. Now they are again. They're the son. The father died. The son is now all over the place, and he's revered because they won the Super Bowl and got Tom Brady back. But that's all they're ever talking about.
Or there's, I mean, I just think there's what was Mikhail Prokhorov actually up to, right? Like, I know he's 6'8" and he looks like a basketball player, but like he sat courtside at one of his first big NBA events and said within earshot of a Sports Illustrated reporter, like, this is all fucking bullshit, right? Like he doesn't care. He's not here for the love of the game, people. Like, so what was he up to? What was the point? Why did he spend all this money, right? Like, there was a point, right? Like, and
he didn't do it willy-nilly. Billionaires don't spend money willy-nilly.
yeah,
That's how they got to be billionaires, among other things.
yeah. I think we just like, like, not every, you're not like a bad person if you don't dig into all this stuff, but it's a little weird that nobody does, right? It's a little weird to me that we're like, all of sports media would gather together and be like, no. Like, we're just going to give everybody who's super rich a free pass. And like, well, it's a little strange.
Well, yeah, just to finish that point, I think John and I talked this on Friday and had before. This is not the time, especially in a pandemic and with what we've gone through the last 4 years politically, where if you follow social media, places like Facebook, everyone just wants to get life to be happy again. Puppy dogs and ice cream for everybody. That's what the criminals want, right? That's what anyone that's willing to do anything corrupt to get ahead, whatever win they want, whatever conquest they want. They want journalists to stop asking questions, stop looking into stuff, be happy you're alive and enjoy life, and let's talk about puppy dogs and ice cream. And that's how we got to this mess in the first place.
It feels a little like building a house on a volcano or something, right? And it's like, well, these are people who are in charge. Like, we got trouble, right? And like, I guess I feel I don't really. What I would love to say to you is that, oh no, like the wise people at the NBA have been watching this, right, and keeping out the bad people, right? But that's where I'm like, not so sure. That's all I trust in that. I'd like to. I think they're capable of it, but I don't think they feel the need to. They don't feel the pressure from us to, right? They don't feel the pressure from the public or the media to like, to do a good job at that, right? They kind of
there's that famous scene in All the President's Men, the movie, where it's the final scene. Ben Bradley is talking to Woodward Bernstein on his lawn when they basically say, we're in danger. Deep Throat Mark Felt had just told Woodward, you're in danger. We're all in danger. Bugs everywhere, the whole thing. And Ben Bradley says the recent poll, the Gallup poll came out, basically no one cares about Watergate.
Yeah.
But go home, take a shower, 15 minutes, get back on the job. That's our job. And thank goodness, if it wasn't for basically those two men, not the New York Times, did a great job. Plenty of newspapers were doing it, but the Post and those two men were leading the coverage, despite being called bold-faced liars and biased and bigots every day, right? Every day by the Nixon administration. It's all made up hooey. It's all lies. The Justice Department was only looking at the break-in, ignoring everything else. This was an incredibly disgusting scheme to make sure that this guy won the election, stayed in power, and it got broken down because journalists did their job.
Yeah,
right? It's a very important part of the balance of power.
I'm sorry that you mentioned Nixon, because now I have to tell you this story. This part just blows my mind.
I'm not sorry.
So Adnan Khashoggi is representing the Saudi government with U.S. manufacturers of like defense contractors, right? One of the biggest at that time was Northrop. Now it's Northrop Grumman. Then it was just Northrop. And so Northrop's paying outlandish fees. This is all in the congressional testimony and the church committee and blah, blah, blah. They're paying like, on one deal alone, $100 million. Meanwhile, Khashoggi and Nixon are dining in Paris before Nixon was ever president. They met in New York. They met in D.C. Like they're very close. And Khashoggi opens an account in the Florida bank of Nixon's best friend, Bibi Rebozo, and he puts tons of money in there. And it's unclear exactly where it goes. When they ask him why all that money, he says to curry favor with the president's best friend. So at one point, the president's private attorney, whose name you have memorized, Kalmbach, right?
Yep. Did that surprise you? That surprised you?
I was impressed. I was impressed. I didn't know his name until I just read it in a book like the week before. He's looking to raise money for a special project, and the head of Northrop gives him $50,000 in cash, which is a pretty weird thing for the head of a major company to do. Right?
To give the president's attorney,
yeah, in cash, like pretty weird, right? And so then this all comes out not in the various like criminal investigations and congressional investigations. This comes out in the stockholder derivative lawsuit. So basically, people who invested in Northrop hear this story and they're like, wait, that's our money. Like
Right.
this dude committed a crime potentially with our cash. And so then this is a particularly scary kind of lawsuit because you sue the board. It often becomes a class action lawsuit. And then the board of Northrop has to take sides, basically. They have to decide, like, we're defending our executive here or we're defending our investors here. And that opens all of the books to scrutiny. And that led to like giant changes at a bunch of American companies, and the Foreign Corrupt Practices Act all came from this one lawsuit in Northrop. And here's what I would say to you. This is, I think, very interesting. I've been told that like Apollo right now, the NBA's most important source of cash, is scared of this exact thing. So when Leon Black wrote a check to Jeffrey Epstein, whose money was that, right? Like, was that really just Leon's private money for Leon's private things, or might Apollo shareholders sue, which would then open the same Pandora's box, right?
Yeah.
And I would also just note that when in this period, when these changes have been coming and they're scared of this, or reportedly scared of this lawsuit, they've changed the whole Apollo board. Like, they've added a bunch of people to it. It's all been reshuffled. It's just, I'm like, whoa, like some dude told me they were scared of this, and then they added like a bunch of people to the board. I'm like, holy crap, I think that's like, it looks like that. Anyway.
All right. So I took us off topic back to our original topic, but I want to finish one thing on the Lakers. Things can change for them. Like, they're allowed to play better, right? They've got talent. They've got AD struggling. LeBron just came back. Maybe his ankle will be fine in a day or two. Doesn't look great, but they just got to play better. They got to figure out how to play Drummond more. They've kind of lost themselves, but I've contended they lost themselves when they didn't bring back their two, athletic centers. They maintained their defensive identity, but that's all they have, and that's just not enough. Which leads us to the Sixers, the team that I'm studying this week, and I've already started writing about it. I don't think I'll have it done till Thursday or Friday is my guess, because they're confounding.
Yeah.
I don't know what to make of Ben Simmons. I know what to make of Joel Embiid. He's ridiculous. He's like Jokic. He just is a master, and he's built like Shaq. He's a master of offensive skills, built like Shaq. But Ben Simmons is confounding. He's an enigma. And they really guard. They're right there with the Lakers and don't score great. And then you got the Nets. So you've got this long tradition of got to be a top 5 team in offense and defense. It's got to be balanced, whatever. And I've done my research. You do. But the Nets are incredible on offense if healthy, right? Which we're going to be talking about a lot. And don't guard. They still really don't guard the way you need to. And I'm not saying they're not trying. That's a separate issue. It doesn't seem to matter as much to them as it normally does to eventual champions.
Yeah.
And so you've got this interesting mix. And so then you asked in the document, Bucks Nets. I don't fucking know. I don't. I mean, first of all, what Nets are we talking about? Are we talking about the Nets as currently constructed, where they never have all 3 of their guys? Or are we talking about all 3? Kyrie, James, and Kevin Durant. I mean, Durant looks incredible. No doubt about it. But there's this one play, I think I got it on there, where Durant, who never gets his jump shot blocked.
Yeah, Giannis blocked it.
And Giannis blocked it. And I don't think it necessarily is symbolic of anything. Durant, 42 in the game. He's an incredible player. His pull-up jumper is as beautiful a thing you've ever seen in basketball. But when Giannis blocked it, I'm like, all right. Like, I want to see that matchup. Don't get me wrong. That would be, and we might, right? That might be 2 versus 3 right there.
Yeah.
I don't know who would win.
Here it is.
Here it is right here. Giannis. I mean, it's a second box jumper fadeaway for Durant. It's money. And Durant's like, no.
Well,
right?
do you see? So Giannis blocks it, and you see Durant has a little, like, this is a rare moment for him. He's a little backpedal with like, God damn it.
Well, I think if Durant and these guys have such brilliant minds, I think Durant is thinking, I fucking should have faked him. Yeah. Because Giannis gave up good balanced positioning because he didn't block it with his left hand, which would be on the same side as the shooter. He went right hand, across body, which means if you fake, he's flying by, and you probably get the N one. And Durant normally anticipates that stuff extremely well, exceedingly well, extraordinarily well, and didn't. Why didn't he? Because no one ever blocks that shot.
Yeah.
Like that is like a Dirk shot. That's an uncontested shot that got contested. That chess match alone would be amazing in the playoffs.
This is something I don't know how to handle this assessment at all. Judy, could we just look at that just dunksandthrees.com, the main homepage. And David, you're pointing out why does it show up like that?
That's a different
there we go. Okay. Yeah. So if you look here, the net rating of the different teams, right? So like the Jazz are first,
by a lot.
Fifth in offense and third in defense and first overall, right? And then, the Suns are second and seventh. The Clippers are third and second. My point is, all of these teams at the top are top 10, both offense and defense. Then you get to the Sixers are like fifth on offense, 13th on offense, second on defense. And then you get to the Nets, they're 27th on defense.
Yeah.
And the Lakers are almost the sort of funhouse mirror version of the Nets, where they're just number one on defense and 22nd on offense.
Right.
I think, David, you are going to point out to us that those two teams that are so extreme from one end to the other are difficult to predict.
Yeah, it's just you wonder. There's no excuse for Brooklyn being 27 with the players that they have. I would strongly argue, and as evidence, I would introduce the New York Knicks. You don't have to have a lot of individually great defenders. The Lakers are also an example, who have played a lot without LeBron and AD, and yet are number one with a bullet defensively. You've got to have a commitment to playing it with whomever you're playing. This is our strategy. It's got to be sound strategy, and we got to be committed to executing that strategy. And at least we can be league average. When you are 27th with the talent Brooklyn has, and even if I didn't know their coaching staff, I would argue they just don't care about defense. Yeah. So it's easy to say, well, they will care when it matters. And there's evidence of that. Cleveland stopped playing defense for a couple of years under Ty Lue because they saved it for the postseason. And it worked, and they would get to the finals, at least for the last 2 years they got blown out. But they did get through the East. But it's problematic. And with Brooklyn's lack of cohesion because of their injuries, it's a concern. On the other hand, it's not like Philly's not trying to score. This is all, I'm processing this now as I'm watching tape on it every morning and studying stats. Philly, no one goes into a game not trying to score. You may not run your best stuff, but you're trying to score. And the fact that they can't get into the top 10 with Joel Embiid, who leads the world in fouls, free throws taken, it's a little worrisome come postseason. Can the Nets decide to really guard? Maybe. But the Sixers can't suddenly decide to score more. That's always been something they want to do. So, yeah, there's a lot of intrigue about it.
I guess I'm worried, too. Like, is James Harden being extra cautious and buying some rest to be phenomenal in the playoffs? Or does he have a profound injury to one of the most troublesome muscles in the body where he's going to be, in and out of the lineup and not 100% on his back? Like,
I don't know. I'll tell you this. When I look at the Nets, Durant is Durant. When Gerard comes on, I'm sure we'll talk about it more too. Gerard always loves to bring up Durant, as he should. He is just one of the most remarkable players in NBA history for sure. But Kyrie is better than people think now. Kyrie's always had, in my opinion, a more style game than substance game. And sometimes even unfairly so. We've written about Kyrie when he was with the Celtics. He isn't the ball hog. He isn't a high usage guy. Like, he isn't a guy that dominates the ball and no one else touches it. That's really not how he's ever played. But he's an enigma too. He's been amazing this season. Really, really just an amazing basketball player. Of those three together, it almost doesn't matter who else is on the court offensively. Even if one of Harden's geniuses is he doesn't have to be super healthy to be amazing. He won't be as amazing if he's not super healthy. That's all right when you've got Kyrie and Durant with Joe Harris as a shooter, it's okay. But defensively, it's going to matter. I think it's going to matter.
Yeah. I guess I feel like 27th best defensive team is usually just not winning a championship no matter what.
Right. Best offense of all time, though.
Well, yeah, but still, it's not just out. You're out. But, if James Harden is also injured, then I definitely play the way. If he's 100%, then there's some magic dust in the air that could happen, right?
Right. So your point is that we would never consider them contenders otherwise. But the fact that they do have the best offense of all time when those guys are healthy, and they may be healthy, at least they have a chance. Whereas we would never give someone a chance before. I agree. I think we have to consider them. And the fact that Sixers offense isn't so great, I'm sorry, I can't just say Sixers over Nets, because the Nets might be able to guard them well enough. Yeah. That's why I keep leaning towards Milwaukee. If I was betting on anyone, I wouldn't bet on any of them. But if I was, I would lean Milwaukee. I mean, by the slimmest of margins, but only because I don't trust Brooklyn's health at all. The West to me is still more intriguing. There's so many things going on there.
So you guys, so I talk to David a lot, and he says a lot of things, and he's very judicious about his predictions and such. But every now and again, there's a break. The clouds part, and he just is like super laser of clarity, including last week when you're like, the Clippers would smoke the Lakers. Why did
and then the Clippers lost 3 straight. But Kawhi just came back. Pat Beverly's still out. I like the Clippers they're having to play Terrence Mann. Luke Kennard is back playing well again. The Lakers really guard your 3. They try to take it away pretty effectively, and they contest it pretty well. And the Clippers don't give a fuck about that. They're the best shooting team in the league, and they don't even shoot a lot of 3s. Yeah. And so I actually think that the Clippers can shoot more 3s and be just fine. So if you do a really good job of taking away their mid-range game, which they're great at, I think, okay, well, now what's left? We have to be the best shooting team from 3 and we have to shoot more 3s. That's not a bad thing. So I think their depth, I think Drummond, they've not been able to figure out Drummond's defense yet. Maybe they will.
David, you see this from Caleb?
What?
The wire, Dennis Schroeder out for COVID protocol 10 to 14 days. Oh, late.
I thought that just came out because I thought he was out before for that. Wow.
I didn't know. Yeah.
Maybe I didn't realize it was 10 to 14 days. Yeah, the Lakers you titled my article last week. It's just not their year.
Yeah.
I have too much respect for the synchronized version of our best teams to think that they can come up with that.
Right.
And that brings me to the East. So when you asked me about Nets Bucks, my answer when you first wrote it to me was, well, I want to see how those first rounds go, which I'm allowed to predict that because I think those things matter. I think when you come out of the previous series, there's lots of variables to it. Health is the most obvious one. But I'm a big believer that getting through a tougher test is better for you.
Right.
Not always equal value, because it depends on what they did. They gave you problems. The years ago when the Spurs ran roughshod over the Heat in the finals, they played a Mavericks team in round 1 that solved the Spurs ball screen action with just 2 defenders. They stayed home with the other 3. I don't think that helped them beat the Heat. It was the toughest series. It turns out it took 7 games to beat them in round 1. They smoked LeBron's team in the finals. But sometimes I do think what happens in the earlier rounds. So it's impossible to know who the Bucks and Nets will play. It really, and that goes to the play-in game idea. How many teams are out? Not a lot.
No, not a lot. Very little has happened. Yeah.
So LeBron may be right in theory that someone may get fired over this, but there's a whole bunch of fans still engaged, which was the idea to begin with,
Yeah, no, LeBron's job is not to make the NBA popular, right? His job is to win games. And so from his point of view, it's problematic, but sorry, like if you want to take responsibility for the league's profit and loss and making fans in Sacramento happy, then this is what we need, right? Like the Kings played 2 important games this weekend. Like how else was that going to happen? Like it's important.
Are the Kings still in the running?
No, but they played important games because
they did for sure.
The Mavericks, right?
Yeah, I watched the game.
Yeah, without the play-in tournament, like that just doesn't matter.
Just doesn't matter.
And actually, David, this is LeBron pulled some strings to get himself to the Lakers to address some issues of legacy, right? And suddenly I'm like, oh boy, like with this news of this Schroeder injury, this is reminiscent of the year that the Lakers were going to miss the playoffs if Kobe didn't haul them on his back into the playoffs. Remember this? And that's when he ended up costing him an Achilles. But I feel like, okay, so now LeBron's in the Kobe seat that he wanted to be in. but it's a very uncomfortable seat because this is a seat where an old player took a mediocre roster, like put them on his back and did legendary heroic things. Incredible Baxter Home story about that run, which was like frankly probably ill-advised, right? Kobe wrecked himself.
Right.
But I don't think this is a fan base that's going to be like, no, LeBron was nursing an ankle. Yes, we took a couple of games off. Like that's not how it's going to go, right? Like the pressure on LeBron to play all these games, all these back-to-backs is going to be insane. It's going to be insane.
And the competition out west, if everyone got healthy, the Lakers would still be under the gun because they got healthy the latest in a sense. They missed the most amount of games. And so are the farthest away from what I think their ceiling could be, right? Yeah. So, I mean, Donovan Mitchell's been out for a while. Mike Conley's hammy is a little banged up. Phoenix is pretty healthy right now. That's a scary thought. I mean, the way Phoenix is playing. Yeah. Think of all the teams in the West. Denver is 9-1 since Jamal Murray went out, and we're not even talking about them. And they've got the world's best player right now, right? If everyone was healthy, I think Durant's the best player in the world. Let me be clear about that. I really do. He's old and he's not healthy, and he's got to watch himself. So, given all those variables, I think Jokic is the best player in the world right now. And they're 9-1, like they're coming. So, and I can keep going about the West. This is what LeBron's gauntlet is.
So we were talking about like and as a running fan, I was saying like at mile 20 of the marathon, if you're on world record pace, you're probably going to win. But if you're on world record pace in a pack of 10, then like somebody in that pack is going to have some crazy day. Some lesser known runner is going to have the run of their lives. And this is LeBron's problem. They're good enough. Like the Lakers are good enough to win a championship, but they're in a pack of, honestly, it's close to 10, right? It's something like that. We're like, yes, some Nuggets team, some, Suns, some Jazz, the Clippers, someone's going to have the series of their lives. And the Lakers can't overcome that 4 times, right?
Right. Their margin, exactly. The Warriors, we think about the best Warriors teams, they needed some luck. Yeah. Against teams a little weaker than some of these teams, and the Lakers aren't as good as those Warriors teams. And so it's just not the year. The Clippers, we'll see how they come around. I happen to, if I was a betting person today, I'm leaning Clippers. I still need to see them come back at full strength. It's more likely that they will. DeMarcus Cousins is now like in the mix a little bit. They've got a versatile bench, and because they're having to play younger players right now, that only adds to that come postseason if they need in a pinch, which sometimes you do. Like sometimes you just need that one game. I'll just say it. There's going to be a game in the postseason where for some reason Terrence Mann plays 28 minutes and like has nearly a double-double and just a tornado. And he may not play 5 games in the whole postseason. But if they win a championship, you're going to look back, there's going to be that one Terrence Mann game, or Luke Kennard's going to have 7 threes. Like, yeah. They're not going to apologize for that. They have a lot of guys. Yeah. I just think that the Clippers. I'm worried. I worry about the Jazz a little bit because they've been. I've said this all year. So dependent on Jordan Clarkson. The good news for them, as Clarkson, if you follow Clarkson's numbers from December, late December, so January, they're coming down. He's shooting it worse every month, but Joe Ingles is still amazing. And now, remember, they didn't have Bogdanovich in the postseason last year. Averaged 20 a game. Well, last month he averaged 19. And he's not been averaging nearly that much going in. And he's playing bully ball. He's shooting 36% of open three, and he shoots it quickly and he shoots it well. But he all of a sudden gives you the same thing Donovan gives you, which Donovan was at, I think Donovan's now at 38.6 or some percent. But Donovan's a bucket around the rim. So is Bogey. Yeah. He's a guard playing their 4, which you can get away with when Rudy's your 5. Like, all right, that just adds to their depth and the texture of how they can beat you in different ways, which Phoenix has too. All that makes it very tough for the Lakers. I do think we have to look at the Jazz more. I need to. They are a legit contender.
Oh, hell yeah. They're the favorites as far as I'm concerned. All right, let's switch for a second to back in December before the season. James Harden was a Rocket. The Rockets were projected to finish 3rd in the West at that time.
Really?
538. Yep. We published this story. Look at the subhead there. That's a quote from a source of mine who had worked at the Rockets, knows everybody involved well, and he said they might end up as the worst team in the league. It was a pretty ballsy thing to say at that time. Couple of Twitter responses here. Look at this. When did this turn into a parody account? Or this might be the most inaccurate prediction in TrueHoop history. You honestly have to be kidding me. There's someone has a gif of slamming a door. There you go, slamming the door. That's Henry Abbott's at the door, slamming there. I like that one.
That's good.
Or there's a guy says these sources are idiots, right? And goddamn, if he didn't prove to be 100% accurate, this was like, yeah. Here's the, if you scroll all the way down, this is the actually, Judy, if you click on the column called projected record, you see that it's like this.
Yeah.
There you go. And then scroll all the way down. You'll see that the Rockets are projected to be by far the worst team in the NBA.
Yeah.
17-55. Now, somebody would say they've had a lot of injuries, and I would say, yeah, true, super true. Also true of a lot of teams. But in particular, what he said, and he told me this thing that they might have the worst team, was that it's a culture of mistrust. The front office doesn't trust the owner, the player doesn't trust the front office, the coach doesn't trust, and on and on. And that would inspire players like James Harden and PJ Tucker and Robert Covington to want to leave, right? And then with the mistrust, it would be hard to build the next thing in a way that everyone believed in, right? And that is exactly what happened.
Yeah. First of all, it wasn't a surprise to know that those guys would want to get out, right? Russell Westbrook he's been great. He really has done a great job with the Wizards. He would have been on the Rockets. Harden, we know how good Harden is, but these were things that you know, in your sources projected. I don't have it in front of me, but I think I had the Rockets with a really terrible record when I did my thing. And I don't remember if Harden, no, he wasn't even gone yet. It was just guessing that he would be gone. Yeah. And meanwhile, they just had Kevin Porter Jr. score 51 in a game. You know this to be true. We can never be defined by how fans react to our vision of what we think might happen, right? They're not sane.
No, but I do think there's like I think there's a thing. I mean, I'm a fan too, right? Like when someone tells you bad news about your team, like it's a little like your doctor talking about your health, right? It's like you don't have to like it, but I mean, this guy who was talking to me, and I talked to a bunch of people for that story, like they love the Rockets too. You know what I mean? And they know way more about it than we do because they live there, right? They're in the room, and like when those people say, "Man, this shit is not working," it's just not working, right? Like when they're telling you that, like it's not. When the doctor says, "Hey, I've got some tough news for you," like don't get the little slam door emoji, right? Like for you, right? It's just not good for you, right? Like the truth. I went through this, when I was a kid as a Blazers fan. They had a terrible like accusation of sexual misconduct in a hotel in Utah and an underage girl and blah blah blah. Like, and I was a kid. I was like, that's bullshit. Like, but it totally tore apart that team. Like, it was the beginning of the end, right? And it was, and it would have been right to police it harder, probably, right? It would have been better for me as a fan to like clean it up and rebuild trust or whatever, right? But yeah, it's tempting to be like, doctor, I don't have cancer. It's like, bro, you got cancer and you need to start the treatment, right? You need to like fix what's happening here. And this is where I think for a Rockets fan, I'd be like, I understand that they're like, actually the funniest part of this damn story is that Tillman Fertitta, born into wealth and a restaurant expert, had a team, run by Daryl Morey and Mike D'Antoni that was one win from probably winning a championship, right? They almost beat the Warriors who rolled in the finals. And and he goes to the reporters and says he has 5 good starters. He loves his starters, which implies everybody else is on the chopping block. And he says, here's a quote, "I'm a fighter. That's my culture. The longer I own this team, the more they're going to pick up my," insert here, "restaurant culture," right? Well, guess what? They fucking picked up your culture, you fucking loser. Like, nice job. You know what Mike D'Antoni and Daryl Morey are doing right now? Like, winning.
Yeah, that's a swing and a miss, as we say from where I'm from. That is, I mean, I think it's also hard. It's one thing to get the cancer diagnosis, which I've had before, when you know something's wrong. But when you think things are going great and all of a sudden, boom, I mean, they were just removed. They still had James Harden and Russell Westbrook and or Eric Gordon, who had been really good before the pandemic, whatever. And all of a sudden, when the so-called, the paint hits the wall, all right, like this is our reality now, right?
Yeah.
And it's hard to swallow that, but it's a whole other thing. The people on social media who think it's an excuse to just show their ass really always bothers me. Like you can be
not,
online.
Like you and I sometimes have jobs where we like prognosticate or predict, or we're asked to like be experts in that way. I don't really like that part. You're good at it because you actually know basketball, which is helpful. But in this case, I'm being a reporter, right?
Right. You're winning with your opinion.
Like I'm calling up people and saying like, what? And then a guy who really knows stuff is saying that. And to me, I'm like, that's if I had a history as a reporter of quoting people saying things that proved to be super insane, then I think you should ding me for that. But like, I don't think I have that reputation, right? And here's I selected pretty carefully who I called, right? And like this is what we're getting. All right, paging the great Gerard Hector. You may know him from Fridays with Gerard.
I want to get his take on the Bucks, obviously Bucks Nets. I want to hear his thoughts after just watching the game and everything. And then what else everyone wants to talk about too.
I want to talk more about Tillman Fertitta's failing restaurant business. That's is
his restaurant business?
I don't know if it's actually failing. I just, it's definitely in trouble.
So he got a bunch of Wall Street money, and the assessment from the analysts was that he was vulnerable to climate change because his whole business empire is based on waterfront property, mostly in the Gulf.
Yeah.
And so the idea was like, if you're going to invest a bunch with them, like you might end up with tons of hurricane damage and such. And it's already kind of started. So I think, the pandemic was a little setback, but the next one's still to come. So yeah. Restaurant empire.
He's got one here, 15 minutes where I live right now, right on Tampa Bay.
Yeah.
Beautiful Landry's location. We don't go there, but beautiful location. And hurricane comes.
Caleb says
Benitez doing that well. That's fine. Shut your pie hole and eat.
I'm dying.
That's so
His
funny.
book's called "Shut Up and Listen," right? So
yeah. Shut up
those of you
or whatever the hell it's called. It's just like, no, dude, you're terrible.
Yeah. Wow.
And I think I said this in one of the TrueHoop TV videos. Like, look, whoever has 9 healthy bodies standing
right.
is probably going to win this thing, right? Because it's just, I don't know what's happening.
It's true.
And everything we say about teams is with the caveat, if healthy, right? And it's like, we don't know. We're just, maybe if they are, sure. So again, I will start my Bucks Nets with if healthy. That series still, if I walk away and I'm the Brooklyn Nets, I'm still feeling pretty confident that I could beat the Bucks in 7 games, right? Because they clearly have a strategy, which is, all right, Giannis, we're going to play you one-on-one, and we're not letting you create and pass to wide open shooters, none of that. If you score 50 every night and beat us, so be it. That's going to be the game plan. And I don't know that his jumper is going to be reliable, right, over the course of an entire playoff series. Yeah, he might have 2 games where that works, but may not. And that's a game where, again, no Harden. Kyrie playing, okay, not great. And a lot of that, Kyrie it's Ramadan, and this is his first year doing Ramadan. You can see he's starting to get into his legs, right? Like, because shots are just front rimming short, and that's a leg thing, right? Okay. And with all that being said, they still were a Kevin Durant 3 from pushing it to overtime, right? So if I'm Brooklyn again, and I think your point about the defense is well taken, but I always go back to what do we talk about in the playoffs and like when these games are possession based and situational, what matters, right? And they have 3 dudes who, I don't care what your defense is, well, when shit breaks down, we can find a way to get a score on our end, right? And even sometimes a missed shot, right, is better than a live turnover, right? Where you get stripped or whatever, you're running.
Sure.
Right. So, I mean, and because of the way those guys play, there's a way in which in late game, high leverage situations, we've seen it, right? Having those types of players is generally better for you than not having those types of players, right? So that's what I'll say about Brooklyn and Milwaukee. Philly, I love your point, Coach. I watched that game last night with San Antonio. Philly can guard their asses off.
They're so long.
Yeah, with Thibault and I mean
Thibault's like my favorite NBA player now. He's so fun to watch. Yeah,
he's so fun.
He's hard to get a shot on.
I wish he'd shoot threes better, but that's another story.
If he did, we'd favor them more.
Well, yes,
sure. He's disappointed in me a little bit here and there too. You know what I mean? But it's okay.
But to Coach's point, I worry about them scoring enough, right?
Yeah.
Like I just because look, you have to manufacture points at some point. And yeah, I get it. They got Embiid, sure, okay, but okay, Tobias Harris. I mean, maybe we already know Ben Simmons' limitations, and then you're hoping again, Danny Green. But if your strategy is still the same, okay, Joel, we're not sending any doubles. Everybody stay home on the shooters. Rest of you guys try to beat us. I don't know, kind of like that. I think it eventually comes down to these little matchups in the East. I think the bottom of the conference, though, Coach, will be interesting.
I do too.
In terms of the play-in, right?
Yeah.
Does anybody want to see Miami in the first round? I'll tell you this: if Miami gets the 6 and Milwaukee stays at 3, Milwaukee not going to be happy with seeing Miami again in round 1 because last year's playoff ghosts come up, all that jazz. If the Celtics still are injured with Tatum and Brown, I mean, there's a snake bit. Talk about the Lakers having this might not be the Celtics year. They just have an all-time luck.
But it also might be their year. Like it's not done yet, right? Like I'm just like, well, I don't know. I'm like they're also amazing, right? Like Jason Tatum is amazing. I mean, this weekend was.
But if not for that injury, I would have just said what you said. Like I'm worried now because I agree with what Rod said, but that's because of the injury. Yeah. Tatum and Brown are super scary. Super scary. In this year, that is a super scary duo. But now with that crash into each other, you have to be healthy. And to Draw's point about Brooklyn, I want to be a little more even nuanced than that. It's not just that Harden, Kyrie, and Durant can get for them a good or very good shot almost all the time. If they're also always willing to make the extra pass when you decide that, no, we're not giving you that.
Okay. Yeah.
And so now you're so screwed as a defense because they're willing to make the pass, which means I've got to make sure I fly out to rotate to the corner shooter. And now there's a lane open and Kyrie just gets a layup. Like that's why they're the best offense of all time is you don't have a poison to pick. All of it kills you. All of it kills you on that end. And so the question only becomes, can they still do it efficiently enough, productively enough on their offense? Because you're going to get the easiest shots you've ever got in a playoff series in your life on the other end, right?
Well, that's where we're not totally babes in the woods here, right? Like there's it scrambles our brain basically so much offense and we've seen people win with this, right? But in fact, it may sound boring and stupid, but that little margin in the dunks and threes table of, difference between offense and defense in the regular season is very predictive of who wins championships, right? And their offense is so good and their defense is so bad. And but the margin puts them what was it? 7th? Are they 7th
for net rating?
Yeah.
But I will also say again, I've been watching the defense post All-Star last, and my point is I think they can string together because it's not about game, like the full game. It's about enough possessions when they matter, right?
Yeah, but that's true every single year of NBA history, and usually teams this bad never make it to the finals.
They're the only exception that could ever be. That trio is why we would not be talking about them otherwise. Right.
And I think it's because those teams, Henry, because they are bad defenders on those teams. Those Brooklyn guys aren't bad defenders, right? They're not. They just choose not to play defense.
They don't care.
Right? But when they want to play defense, and we've seen it, they can, right? And I think that's the slight difference you're talking about.
I'm not I don't think it's impossible that they win the championship this year, right?
No.
But I just think that the degree of turning it on that you're proposing is if it were possible for humans to do that, probably someone would have done it.
No doubt.
Well, just to further that point, there's a systemic issue when you're that low defensively. There's something going on or not going on that's dragged them down. That is not going to be so easy to fix. So all of a sudden they're going to value defense and value scouting and value the reports and all those little things. It's fair to question that. That's why it's intriguing. Otherwise it'd be Brooklyn and we don't pick Brooklyn.
Right. Look, I can picture it. I can close my eyes right now and picture them not losing a single game in the playoffs. I get it. I fully get it. I have no idea. But honestly, here's my hunch. My new hunch on the East is one team, conceivably the 76ers, will only have to play one of the good teams.
One seed.
Right?
Yeah.
that's probably the most likely to win, right? Like the other one has to beat 2. Probably not going to work.
That is correct.
Brooklyn can still get the 1 seed. It's not over yet.
Harder for them now, but if Philly's more likely to get the 1 seed now. If you are the 1 seed, you are the highest percentage and likelihood of making the finals because again, it's only one of them you got to beat. Because beating both teams.
I did not come back on Monday to make us late to end the show. God damn it, it's time to go. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, David. Thank you, Jenny. Thank you, Gerard.
See you Friday, everyone. Be safe.